Preservation Texas is announcing its 2026 list of Texas's most endangered places. I'm Evan Thompson, Executive Director of Preservation Texas, and this year's list includes 6 significant historic sites that represent a diverse range of Texas heritage. Since launching our first Most Endangered Places list in 2004, we have brought critical attention to vulnerable historic sites statewide. Over the past 2 decades, the program has identified threatened historic places, raising public awareness and helping to mobilize support for their protection. Since the program's inception, 207 individual sites have been included on the list, of which only 20 or 10% have been lost. 2 of those losses are recent, and both were owned by public institutions of higher education: the Institute of Texan Cultures building in San Antonio and the University Junior High building in Austin. Both were exempt from the protections of the state Antiquities Code. In 2025, we proposed legislation to close this loophole, but it did not receive a public hearing. We will work to reintroduce this legislation in next year's legislative session. 2 examples of recently saved buildings are the Tyner Hendrick House in Sutherland Springs and the 4th Street Church in Lampasas. Local advocates have worked to save the Tyner Hendrick House by relocating it from its current site to a more accessible site nearby. The 4th Street Church in Lampasas is being restored by the nonprofit Lampasas Heritage Foundation. It was originally built in the 1940s as St. Christopher's Catholic Church. Now for our 2026 list of most endangered places. We begin in Houston, where the Garden Oaks Theater opened in 1947 as a neighborhood movie house within a small commercial complex that included retail and service spaces. Developed by Interstate Theaters and designed by Pettigrew Cook and Associates, the building served as a cultural anchor in the Garden Oaks neighborhood for decades, later transitioning to screen Spanish-language films through the 1980s. As similar neighborhood theaters in the Houston area have largely disappeared, the Garden Oaks Theater stands as one of the few remaining examples of this once common building type. The theater was sold in 2025, and demolition was actively pursued before being temporarily delayed through community advocacy efforts. Strong public support has emerged, with thousands of petition signatures and widespread calls for adaptive reuse rather than demolition and redevelopment. The nonprofit Art House Houston and other local preservation advocates, including Preservation Houston, are working toward a long-term solution that would retain the building and reintegrate it into the community as a cultural venue. In Nacogdoches, the Stone Fort Museum is located on the campus of Stephen F. Austin University. This is another example of a historic building owned by a public institution of higher education. It was designed as a replica of an 18th century stone structure associated with the founder of Nacogdoches, Antonio Gil Ibarbo, and reconstructed for the 1936 Texas centennial. For nearly a century, the stone fort has served as a center for public history, education, and heritage tourism on campus. It remains a prominent landmark within the community and a resource for both visitors and university students. Despite its continued significance, the building is threatened with demolition so that a new building can be constructed in its site. The university has proposed transferring the structure and its collections to the city of Nacogdoches, but no clear relocation plan or public process has been established, and local advocates fear that the cost would be prohibitive. In response, a coalition of advocates has formed the Save Our Stone Fort Alliance, calling for formal recognition of the building's importance and for it to remain in its current location on campus. In Amarillo, located along historic Route 66, English Field Airport was originally dedicated in 1929. The streamlined modern terminal opened in 1946, with an addition constructed in 1954. Airlines including TWA, Braniff, American, and Continental once operated from the airport, making it a major hub for air travel in the Texas Panhandle. The terminal remained in use until 1972, when Rick Husband International Airport opened. On March 24, 2026, Amarillo City Council voted to abate and demolish the structure, citing safety hazards. Pursuant to Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, the FAA determined that the building would not be eligible for the National Register, citing integrity issues, and the Texas Historical Commission concurred. But we disagree. We believe that this building is worthy of preservation and listing on the National Register, and we support local advocates who are calling for a pause to the demolition and urging city officials to explore alternatives. Creative adaptive reuse solutions should be considered to save the building. A National Register listing and a potential lease or transfer to private owner would allow for the use of state and federal tax credits to help assist in the cost of its rehabilitation. It would be unfortunate to lose this building on the centennial year of Route 66. The Barton Springs Bridge is located in Austin's Zilker Park and was constructed 100 years ago in 1926 as an open spandrel reinforced concrete arch designed by Texas engineer Terrell Bartlett. It is a contributing feature within the Zilker Park National Register Historic District and has long served as both a functional transportation route and a defining element of the city's cultural landscape. Highly visible and frequently photographed from the Ann and Roy Butler hike and bike trail, the bridge is an iconic presence in one of Austin's most used public spaces. The bridge retains a high degree of integrity and remains in active use. It is widely recognized for its engineering significance and its role in shaping the development of Austin's park system. Despite this, the City of Austin has advanced plans to replace the structure, citing concerns about its condition and functionality. Although earlier studies considered rehabilitation, the city has since identified replacement as its preferred approach, even as evidence indicates that the bridge's primary structural components remain sound. Federal funding requirements necessitate consideration of alternatives, yet critics argue that demolition has effectively been predetermined. Local preservation advocates are calling for a reevaluation of rehabilitation options to avoid the loss of a historically and architecturally significant landmark and its replacement with an inappropriate and out-of-scale new bridge. The Simon Peter Hawkins House is a rare example of early settlement-era construction in Wichita County. Located in Burke-Burnett, a city on the Texas-Oklahoma border, the house was built around 1883 using box construction, an efficient building method in which walls were assembled in sections without interior studs. Hawkins was a prominent early settler who served as a mail carrier, civic organizer, and otherwise played an important role in the establishment of Wichita County. The house was expanded in the early 20th century to accommodate his growing family, and it reflects both frontier building practices and the adapting, evolving domestic needs of its occupants. Now owned by the Burke-Burnett Historical Society, the Hawkins House still stands on its original site, though it is now confined to a small, isolated plot barely larger than the structure itself and surrounded by industrial uses. It was restored in the late 1990s and once served as a stop on a local historic tour, but in recent years, public access and engagement have declined significantly, and the building is otherwise not visible to the public. The Society seeks to secure long-term protection for the Hawkins House by moving it to their museum property downtown to be able to interpret early settlement history in Wichita County and north central Texas and to protect the oldest house known to survive in Wichita County. Dallas City Hall is a nationally significant example of brutalist civic architecture, designed by renowned architect I.M. Pei and completed in 1978. Conceived as part of a broader effort to redefine the city's identity in the decades following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, the building's bold, sloped facade and monumental civic plaza established it as a defining landmark of modern downtown Dallas. For nearly 50 years, City Hall has served as the center of municipal government and civic life in Dallas, hosting public meetings, demonstrations, and major community events. Its design emphasizes transparency and accessibility, expressed through its expansive glass and open plaza. Despite its continued use and symbolic importance, the building now faces uncertainty as city leadership explores relocation options. Citing high projected maintenance costs using figures disputed by preservation advocates, the City of Dallas is considering vacating the site in favor of redevelopment. Proposals include replacing the structure with large-scale mixed-use buildings, placing it at risk of demolition. Preservationists are calling for a comprehensive evaluation of rehabilitation options to ensure that this nationally important civic landmark is not lost. Dallas City Hall, along with the other 5 buildings that we have included on our list in 2026, reflect the architectural and cultural diversity of Texas and a wide range of preservation challenges that face communities across the state. However, we believe that the inclusion of these 6 buildings on our 2026 list will help empower Texans to take action to save these important buildings before it's too late. The 2026 Most Endangered Places list is an important program of Preservation Texas. You can learn more about these sites and our programs statewide by visiting our website, preservationtexas.org.